One of the biggest arguments in the world of Express LRS these days is which is better, 2.4 gigahertz or 900 megahertz. 2.4 gigahertz has faster packet rates up to 1,000 packets per second for the lowest possible latency, but 900 megahertz has much better penetration and range for long distance and any time of flying where you might have to penetrate through obstacles. But 900 megahertz doesn't go as fast. You don't get as low latency. And 900 megahertz has big antennas. 2.4 gigahertz antennas are so easy to mount. But what if you didn't have to decide? What if there was a dual band transmitter that could transmit in both 2.4 gigahertz and 900 megahertz, whichever you want, could switch between them seamlessly, and could even do Gemini for the maximum possible resistance to interference and maximum possible range and link quality? Does that make this Radiomaster Nomad like the ultimate Express LRS module that you can buy today? It does it all. I'm Joshua Bardwell, and you're going to learn something today. Before we get to testing out the new Radiomaster Nomad module, let's make sure we all understand what it is. And the first thing it is it's an Express LRS module. And if you don't know what Express LRS is, this isn't the video to learn it. But in short, Express LRS is an open source, so the hardware is widely available and relatively inexpensive, high performance, ultra long range, ultra low latency, very full featured control link for your, well, mostly FPV drones, but also other vehicles as well. So if you're going to get into Express LRS, you're going to need an Express LRS module. And most people these days are going to do something like this. This is the Radiomaster Boxer Crush, and it has an Express LRS module built into it. That is, it just binds with Express LRS receivers and does Express LRS without any additional hardware. This is 2.4 gigahertz Express LRS. And as you might infer, Express LRS can operate in various frequency bands, the most common ones being 900 megahertz and 2.4 gigahertz. But the Radiomaster Nomad has something extra going for it compared to other Express LRS modules that you might see on the market. It has two antennas, and that means that it's doing Gemini. And I've got a whole video digging into what Gemini is and testing Gemini with this, the Beta FPV Gemini Nano module. This was the first Gemini module to hit the market. You see, this module doesn't just have two antennas. It has two completely separate parallel radio chains. This is essentially two Express LRS modules in one package. And that opens up a lot of different possibilities. One possibility is that you could simply double the packet rate. You could get more packet rate compared to what you could get with a single radio. Another possibility is that you transmit each packet twice, and that doubles the chances that the packet will get through. If one packet is transmitted on this frequency and it hits some interference, the other packet could be transmitted on this frequency and it might not hit interference, and therefore, especially at the edge of range where link quality starts to get marginal, you could increase the ability to get sort of add a little bit of additional range to your system. But the Radiomaster Nomad does something that no other Gemini module so far does. You see, when I said previously that the module would transmit one packet on one frequency and one packet on another frequency, thereby increasing the probability that one of them gets through, I meant those frequencies are both in the 2.4 gigahertz band. That's how this Beta FPV Gemini module works. These are 2.4 gigahertz antennas, and the radios in here operate only at 2.4 gigahertz. So you could transmit anywhere in the 2.4 gigahertz band, and that's better than just transmitting in one place in the 2.4 gigahertz band. But the Radiomaster Nomad operates in both 900 megahertz and 2.4 gigahertz. So does that mean that we can set the radio to use 900 megahertz today if we want to do some long range, and set the radio to use 2.4 gigahertz tomorrow if we want to do some racing? And theoretically, could we set one radio to do 2.4 gigahertz and one radio to do 900 megahertz? So I don't know why you'd want to do that, but if you thought, oh, I might experience some interference on 2.4 gigahertz, so then I'm going to drop to 900, or maybe you think I'm going to be at 2.4 gig until I go behind a building and lose range, and then I'm going to switch to 900. I don't know. But the beautiful thing about this module is you have the option. Let's take a look at what it's like when we actually put it inside a radio. Now, I'm going to be putting this into my Radiomaster Boxer Crush radio, and you can see that it has a JR module bay, and this module here has a JR module adapter. The module is also going to come with a nano module adapter. That's for radios that have this light form factor, like you see for the Beta FPV. Smaller radios like the Radiomaster Zorro have it. The Nomad will be available and will in fact come, I'm told, according to Radiomaster's marketing materials, it will come with an adapter for both form factors. Just at the time that they shipped these out to reviewers, it was not available. So at this time, it's only going to be in a JR module, at least in my video. Then, if I go into the Express LRS script, we can see various packet rates. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to go through these packet rates, and we're going to explain the new packet rates that this Radiomaster Nomad dual band Gemini module supports. And I know that might sound a little boring, like Bardwell's just going to read me off a list of packet rates. I'm going to try not to do it that way, but this is where we understand the new things that this module can do. This is actually the meat of this video. So in order to make this as painless as possible, let me generalize some concepts for you going in. Number one, Express LRS has different packet rates. Lower packet rates have higher latency and better range and penetration. So 50 hertz is going to give you more range and penetration and higher latency. 1,000 hertz is going to give you worse range and penetration and lower latency. Okay? That's generally true basically everywhere. Some of the packet rates that we look at are going to have the word full next to them. What does that mean? One of Express LRS's goals is to make the RC link as efficient as possible. When Express LRS transmits the first 4 channels, the main channels that carry the gimbal sticks, they have full resolution and they are transmitted in every packet, so they are updated as frequently as possible. But if you think about it, if I've got an aux switch, maybe it's a 2-position switch, maybe it's a 3-position switch, maybe it's a potentiometer, right? And it's got more than 2 or 3 positions, but it doesn't need like 1,000,000 bits of resolution, right? If we had maybe 64 or 128 positions of resolution, that would be plenty for an aux channel encoding a potentiometer or a switch value. And we probably don't need the lowest possible latency. When I flip a switch, does it matter if it's 4 milliseconds or 8 milliseconds till the flight controller knows I flipped the switch? So the aux channels for Express LRS by default do not have full resolution and are not transmitted in every packet. But some people want the classic way that it works, that every channel gets full resolution. And that is what the full packet modes are for. When you select a full packet mode, you have 16 instead of 12 channels. You get 4 additional channels. Isn't that cool? I'm like 99% sure that's true. You have 16 channels instead of 4, and each channel has full resolution, and each channel is transmitted in every packet, but the latency is worse and the range is worse. That's the trade-off there. Having gotten that out of the way, let's take a look at what we've got here. And the first thing you'll see is 50 hertz in 2.4 gigahertz, 100 hertz full in 2.4 gigahertz, 150 hertz in 2.4 gigahertz, 250 hertz in 2.4 gigahertz, and 333 hertz full in 2.4 gigahertz, and 500 hertz in 2.4 gigahertz. This is the standard complement of 2.4 gigahertz packet rates that you would expect to see on any Express LRS module. Please notice, though, that the F packet rates and the D packet rates are gone. The F gets you up to 1,000 hertz, and so you're not going to get 1,000 hertz out of this module. And the D packet rates will, in the interest of time and conciseness, won't put a definition of what they are since this module doesn't support them, but you should know they're not there either. Do keep in mind that all of these packet rates are in Gemini mode. Do you see down here we have antenna mode Gemini? So 50 hertz with this Gemini module is going to do better, should do better than 50 hertz with a non-Gemini module in terms of range. This is not a straight apples-to-apples comparison, but the latency is going to be the same. 50 hertz Gemini, same latency as 50 hertz non-Gemini, just with better range. Next, we've got 50 hertz low band. And in this module, low band is 900 megahertz. And I don't know why they don't call it 900 megahertz. They call it 2.4 gigahertz, 2.4 gigahertz, not high band, but they call it low band. So fine. Whenever you see low band with this module, just know that that is 900 megahertz frequency band. We've got 50 hertz, 100 hertz, 100 hertz full, 200 hertz, and this is where previous 900 megahertz modules stopped. They couldn't go above 200 hertz. But because we have dual radios, we can transmit twice as much data and we can push it even further. We've got 200 hertz full. And if you're going to run Mavlink with the new ExpressLRS 3.5, this is the packet rate that's recommended. It's got double the packet rate compared to the previous full packet rate because of the dual radios, and that Mavlink needs a fast packet rate. If you don't know what Mavlink is, don't worry about it. It probably doesn't apply to you. And then lastly, we've got 250 hertz low band, which is a faster packet rate than 900 megahertz ExpressLRS has ever been able to do. In fact, I can't help but notice that I usually run 250 hertz on my 2.4 gigahertz ExpressLRS gear. To me, that's the sweet spot between low enough latency while still having pretty good range and penetration that I hardly ever have to think about fail-safing. I guess theoretically, I can now run 900 megahertz if I wanted to, without giving up anything in terms of latency. It's kind of cool. But we still haven't seen the best trick that the Radiomaster Nomad module has up its sleeve, and that is the X bands. So the X packet rates are going to be transmitting one radio in 2.4 gig and one radio in 900 meg simultaneously. And I have to acknowledge, like, FreeSky had a module that did this same thing a long time ago. And part of me still is, like, what's the point? Because if you think about it, if I've got a 900 megahertz radio and a 2.4 gigahertz radio, the 900 megahertz radio is always going to win. If I'm up close, both packets are going to get through. And then eventually I'm going to get far away, and the 2.4 gigahertz radio is going to start fail-safing because it has a higher frequency, so it has less range and penetration. And then 900 megahertz will just... So, like, why not just run 900 megahertz all the time and save yourself the trouble? Wouldn't I rather set 900 megahertz Gemini and double my packet transmissions for even better link reliability? But I think there's a hidden purpose to the X modes that many hobbyists are not going to encounter. And that's a situation where you theoretically might experience interference on one frequency band, but you don't know which frequency band is going to get interference, and you want to cover your butt. So if you think maybe I'll get interference on 2.4 gig and I want to fail over to 900, maybe I'll get interference on 900, I just don't know. Like, you're going to fly next to a cell tower and it's going to blast you out of the air. You don't want to take a chance. Or you're going to fly next to some Wi-Fi radio and it's going to blast you out of the air and you don't want to take the chance. That's the situation where the X bands or the X packet rates, I think, make the most sense. So we've got X100 full, X150, and that's it. Those are our X bands. That's all we get for the X modes. Hey there, guys. Joshua from the future here. At the time that I'm recording this, ExpressLRS 3.4 is the latest, and that's the feature set that you're seeing me review. So when I say things like it doesn't support 1000 hertz packet rate, that is true as of today. But I have to correct myself in the past and tell you that ExpressLRS 3.5 is coming soon, and it's going to add things like 1000 hertz packet rate in the 900 megahertz low band and other additional packet rates that it doesn't support as of today. DK500, it's a Donkey Kong clearly, next generation FSK modulation, 500 hertz, 1000 hertz. There's even more coming, but you knew that already because ExpressLRS always has more coming. So if you think about it, what this means is that I could go to a race one day and set my module to 500 hertz 2.4 gig Gemini and have a 500 hertz signal with very low latency, transmitting each packet twice for the maximum LQ, maximum link reliability. And then the very next day, I could go out and I could do some long-range mountain cruising with 50 hertz low band for 900 megahertz ultra long-range penetration and not have to change my hardware at all. Except I'd need a receiver that could receive in both of those bands. That's the thing. Most of the receivers that you're going to see today will only operate in 2.4 or 900 megahertz. And this module can bind to them. If you buy a 900 megahertz ExpressLRS receiver and you set this to low band, it will work. If you buy a 2.4 gigahertz ExpressLRS receiver and you set it to 2.4 gig, it will work. But you won't be getting the full benefit. To get any benefit at all out of Gemini, you need a dual antenna receiver like this Beta FPV Super D or this Radiomaster RP4TD. A traditional diversity receiver will have two antennas, but only one radio chain. And so it can listen on the two antennas, and whichever antenna gets the strongest packet, it will receive it, but it will not be able to tune in to the simultaneous Gemini transmissions at the same time. So an antenna diversity receiver will have some benefit, but a true diversity receiver, and both of these are true diversity, will be able to actually transmit and receive simultaneously at the same time and get the full benefit of the Gemini system. If you're going to use Gemini, you want a full diversity receiver, although you can use a non-diversity or an antenna diversity receiver. If you have to, you just won't get the full benefit of the Gemini system. But none of these receivers can switch between 900 megahertz and 2.4 gigahertz. And that brings us to this, the Radiomaster DBR4 receiver. And you can see that this receiver has no fewer than 4 antennas. It has two 2.4 gigahertz and two 900 megahertz antennas. Well, maybe you can't see because they're out of the shot because I zoomed in so far. But that's what it's got. It has 4 antennas, and it can actually just whatever you set the module to. You want crossband? You got crossband. You want 2.4 gigahertz Gemini? You got it. You want 900 megahertz? Just wake up one morning and decide what frequency you want to operate in. This receiver can do it all. This is clearly going to be overkill for a lot of applications. Most people don't wake up one day and decide they just want to take the same quadcopter mountain cruising that they were racing with the day before. But if you decided you wanted to, now you can. And this is the first receiver I've ever seen that has this capability. Actually, that's not true. I just remembered that I got these receivers from a new company called BayckRC, B-A-Y-C-K-R-C. It is a dual band 900 megahertz and 2.4 gigahertz ExpressLRS Gemini receiver. And what they did differently is that they have a dual band antenna, 2.4 and 900 megahertz. I have no idea like how well this antenna actually freaking works or how well it's tuned. The idea that we've got these two elements here kind of hurts me and offends me, but maybe they probably know some engineering stuff that I don't. I don't know. An antenna expert would have to weigh in. But this can also do the same thing. It's only got 2 antenna connectors. So how are they doing the amplifiers? How are they doing the receivers? I don't know. Doesn't the receive chain have to be tuned to a specific frequency? It feels to me like this approach probably doesn't work as well as Radiomaster's approach, but it only has 2 antennas instead of 4, and that's going to make a big difference when you're mounting on your damn quadcopter. So I'll put links to these down below as well. The reason I haven't made any content about the BayckRC yet, even though I've had it for several months now, is they don't have a module. Or if they did, they haven't sent it. They said they send it to me when it was ready. And so I haven't been able to actually test it, whereas Radiomaster was the first to actually get me a module that I could actually test. Well, I want to see this work. I mean, I believe that it works, but I want to see it with my own eyes. So I've pulled out this little tool. This is the Tiny SA Ultra Spectrum Analyzer. It's upside down because I'm left-handed and I've flipped the screen. This thing's about $200, and as spectrum analyzers go, it's terrible, but really good spectrum analyzers cost thousands or tens of thousands of dollars. For $200, this thing is a real freaking powerhouse and punches way above its weight class. And what I've done here is I have programmed it to show me the 900 megahertz frequency band like down here and the 2.4 gigahertz frequency band like up here. In fact, I should be able to split the screen, shouldn't I? Now, I have to keep the boxer a little far away because if the boxer is too powerful, it'll actually damage the Tiny SA. But I will tell you verbally what I'm doing and we'll watch the results. So right now, we're in 50 hertz low band, but if I change to 50 hertz 2.4 gigahertz, oh, it's gone here. Oh, there it is. Yeah, it was covered up by the menu. There it is. Hang on, let's fix that. Stop at 2.55 gigahertz. Let's bump that up a little. There we go. There it is. 2.4 gigahertz there. Yep. All right. And now we'll go back to low band. There it is, down to 900 megahertz. And now we'll do the X band. Show me X band. Oh, yeah, I'm doing them both. I don't know what I expected, but it's kind of cool to be able to see it. There are a few more things we got to address about this Nomad module, including a couple of questions that I'm not 100% sure we're going to be able to answer. The first one is these dual band antennas. Would we get better performance if we had dedicated 2.4 gig or 900 megahertz antennas? Yes, unquestionably. I am not qualified to put these antennas on like an analyzer and comment on their performance, but it is just always true that when you design a dual band antenna, you will get worse performance than if you had a dedicated single band antenna. So if you were serious about this, then you probably would want to like have 2.4 giga antennas for your race day or 900 mega antennas for your long distance, especially people flying long distance who really want the most range possible. These dual band antennas are almost certainly more for convenience than they are for performance. You could even figure out if you were doing X-band whether this antenna was 900 and this one was 2.4 or vice versa, and put the appropriate antenna on each. This is not really a limitation of the Nomad module itself. It's just a consequence of having a dual band system. Interestingly, they solved that just fine with the receiver by having 4 antennas, but I don't think anybody wants 4 antennas hanging off of their module. The output power of the Nomad is 1 watt, and I'm not even going to test that because, well, number one, Radiomaster has a great track record, and number two, this hardware goes to the ExpressLRS devs for validation. They do things like a heat soak test where they leave it powered on for 1 hour at full power, and they verify that even after it heats up, it's still putting out the rated output power, and so on and so on. There are procedures for verifying this stuff. Some people are going to ask whether this module can be increased to 2 watts like the Radiomaster Bandit and the Radiomaster Ranger, the biggest version of them can be. I don't know the answer to that. I will say that based on its size and based on the fact that it has 2 amplifiers, not just 1, my gut feeling would be that this doesn't have enough heat dissipation capability to handle increased output power. So you're going to be limited to 1 watt, but 1 watt at 900 megahertz is pretty freaking insane range. Keep in mind that if you're using this in the 900 megahertz band, you will need to set your region correctly. In Europe, that's going to be 868 megahertz. In the USA, it's going to be 915 megahertz. And if you're on the wrong band, you will interfere with the cell network, which, number one, will cause you to be more likely to fail safe, and number two, will piss off the cell towers, which you definitely don't want to do. That's done in the web UI. You can just log into the web interface, and if you work with ExpressLRS, you're familiar with how to do that. Don't forget to do that, though. Make sure you log in and set the region correctly for whatever region you're in. Like many of the Radiomaster modules, the Nomad has these programmable buttons. The exact function of these can be programmed in the web UI. You could do things like activate binding by pressing 1 or activate the Wi-Fi mode by pressing 1. It's fully configurable, and you go into the web UI and you do that. I haven't really demonstrated that here, but it is a feature that some other Radiomaster modules have had, and yeah, it's kind of cool. None of my modules have ever had it, so it's not really a feature that stands out very much in my mind. There is a USB port on the bottom for easy firmware updates as well as external power. Most radios today are going to be able to supply enough power to the module bay in order to fully power this one, but if you had a radio where either you didn't want to suck the radio's batteries down quite as fast, and Gemini has dual radio chains, dual amplifiers, so it sucks the battery down twice as fast as a non-Gemini module. You can always wire it up to a 4S battery here. It says maximum 16.8 volts and minimum 6 volts, so 2S to 4S basically. And you can have it with an auxiliary battery if you need to. Or if you were going to put it in some kind of a ground station where it wasn't in a radio, you could do that. I think there's a compelling argument that this might be the ultimate ExpressLRS module for a lot of people. And here's why I say that. If you're a typical hobbyist, then you have the flexibility to use either 900 megahertz or 2.4 gigahertz, depending on just what you happen to want that day. You could put a 900 megahertz receiver in a Bando Basher bird and get the additional penetration. You could put a 2.4 gigahertz receiver on a micro and get the advantage of the smaller antenna. This does it all. If you're a racer, you might miss the F1000 packet rate, which gives you the absolute lowest latency, but you can do a 500 hertz Gemini packet, which is going to give you an even more reliable link, still with pretty low latency. And if you're a long-range enthusiast, you slap a 900 megahertz antenna on here, and you've got 900 megahertz Gemini. So increased LQ, better link reliability, better range. It just seems like it does it all. You can even use it with any receiver you want. You can use it with a generic single receiver. It'll work, just won't do Gemini. You can use it with a diversity receiver. You can use it with this honking thing. If you want to go all freaking out, just does it all. If you agree, there's links in the video description below to where you can pick it up. And they are affiliate links. And those affiliate links really matter. Every time you click an affiliate link below one of my videos and then make a purchase at that store, I get a little bit of money. That's it. Doesn't cost you anything. Your price is the same. Just the vendor gives me a little bit of kickback. You call it kickback. I don't care. You can call it whatever you want. Just don't call me late for dinner. So before you do your shopping, go find those affiliate links. You can even bookmark them if you want to really do me a favor, and use those affiliate links whenever you go to an affiliated store and make a purchase. And it sure would mean a lot. Well, you're probably finding yourself wishing that I had done a little bit more of a deep dive into what Gemini is. And the reason I haven't done that is I already did that, and I did that with this Beta FPV module. So I'm going to put a card on screen and a link in the video description to my video about Gemini, where I dove a little bit deeper, including some flight testing of the Gemini system to see how it performed. And if you're really serious about Gemini, I highly recommend you check that out. I'll see you there.